What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, soon to be two-time trainer of the year, well-renowned trainer, future Hall of Famer, trainer of unified, undefeated, 3-belt, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer who is widely considered by many to be top 2 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Errol the Truth Spence Jr., 28 wins, no loss, no draw, 22 big wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. He also trains two-time junior middleweight world champion, who's the undisputed junior middleweight world champion, superstar boxer, and should be, and in my book is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Jamel Lyons Only Charlo, who has 35 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 18 wins by way of knockout. He is 32 years of age, 6 feet tall with a 73.5-inch arm reach. That being none other than Derrick, who also trains undefeated, rising lightweight star title contender Frank Martin. With that said, Derrick James, Frank Martin just had a fight, so Derrick James was on hand. And Derrick James, obviously, he was asked about the biggest fight in the sport of boxing that involves one of his fighters in Errol Spence Jr. and undefeated, former 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO, World Boxing Organization welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Bud Crawford, okay? Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no losses, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. With that said, Terence Crawford is 50% of the biggest fight in the sport of boxing between himself and Errol Spence Jr. And Derrick James, he addressed it. Obviously, everybody wants to know, everybody's eager, they're clamoring to see who's going to win. They want to see who's the best. They want to see this historic, epic fight, and everybody's eager. And so Derrick James, he attests to it. And Derrick James, he stated that they already started training for Terence Crawford, okay? They already started preparing for Terence Crawford. It's going to be epic, right? In another interview Derrick James did, he believes that Terence Crawford is going to utilize the ring, is going to utilize a lot of movement to try and, avoid Errol Spence's aggression, Errol Spence's onslaught, okay? His pressure, his physicality, right? So he stated that he believes that that's going to be Terence Crawford's game plan. Now, I believe, I agree or disagree to an extent, because I believe that Errol Spence physicality and the status of Errol Spence is going to spark the ego and the competitive nature of one Terence Crawford, and going to see Terence Crawford want to prove a point and stand in front of Errol Spence. Now, I have no doubt that in the beginning of the fight, Terence Crawford is going to utilize movement, okay? Because Terence Crawford is historically a slow starter to begin with. So I do believe in the beginning of the fight, he'll utilize movement to try and engage and understand Errol Spence's distance, timing, and what Errol Spence is attempting to do, right? The problem with Terence Crawford fighting Errol Spence is that Errol Spence is not they're equal as far as abilities goes, okay? Terence Crawford is more talented than everybody else he fought. When it comes to Errol Spence, that's not the case. So it's going to be hard for Terence Crawford to start off slow, okay? Because you start off slow against Errol Spence, you may not never catch up, okay? He can start off slow against Igor Velasquez. He can start off iffy against Shawn Porter, 2-time welterweight world champion, superstar boxer. But Shawn Porter has limitations that Terence Crawford don't physically. He can start off slow against guys like Jose Benavidez Jr. He can do that, right? And catch up because he's just the more talented athlete and fighter. Higher ring IQ, better abilities, more tools in the toolbox. When it comes to Errol Spence, that's not the case. Now, he does do things better than Errol Spence, and Errol Spence does things better than Terence Crawford. but their talents offset one another. Okay, his abilities are just as great as Terence Crawford and vice versa, right? It's just that you can nitpick it. You can point to, well, Terence Crawford is better in this area than Errol Spence, or Errol Spence is better in this area than Terence Crawford, right? So Derrick James, he stated that, the key to his success with his fighters is that he does it with his fighters, right? He's training with his fighters. They're not doing it by themselves, okay? He's doing it with them, okay? And so because he's doing it with them, that gives him, an advantage most trainers don't have. He goes into training camp with his fighters, like he stated, right? And so, he said that we already started camp. We in camp. We started running. We started preparing. We started strategically getting ready for Terence Crawford. Well, that was abundantly clear after Errol Spence's April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium showdown with former WBA welterweight world champion Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, okay, in which Errol Spence got a 10th round stoppage victory over Yordenis Ugas. And after the fight, you can see Derrick James, he's telling Errol Spence in the corner, we got to go back in the lab. That's how we stay sharp. We got to get back in the lab. And Errol Spence agreed. 48 hours later, Errol Spence is back in the lab. You see Errol Spence training. He's preparing, right? So it's abundantly clear that Errol Spence understands the magnitude of this fight, and he's already preparing, right? Well, this is great news. So, he stated that he's just waiting for, everything to get signed, This is great news for everybody, man. I believe, and the reason I say this is great news, not just because we know we're going to get the fight delivered, as Errol Spence already confirmed is going to happen, right? Not just because of that, but because you're going to get the best version of Errol Spence, okay? The Errol Spence, this is happening, in my opinion, in the perfect time for Errol Spence, okay? Everything happens for a reason, and I believe that, Errol Spence facing adversity outside of the sport of boxing, suffering that horrific car accident just 12 days after unifying the belts against Sean Porter, suffering a broken or detached retina just 2 weeks or a few days before fighting the biggest fight of his career against legendary 8th division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. I think that, these are all the wake-up calls, right? Errol Spence, we know in between fights, he's admitting of this, that he has been, not the most focused guy in the world in between fights, okay? He was enjoying the fruits of his labor, hanging out and partying, having weight loss camps. So we know Errol Spence, he had to, make some adjustments to not just his approach to the sport, but to his life. And so now I believe that we're going to get the best version of Errol Spence we've ever gotten going into this fight with Terence Crawford. It just happens to be the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, right? And on top of that, Terence Crawford understands the magnitude of this fight. Whether you believe it or not, whether the reports and rumors are true, that Terence Crawford is asking for, upwards of 20 to 25 to 30 million dollars. His team came out and they stated that, that the money's not right. That's the reason why Terence Crawford hasn't signed the contract. Well, the fact that that's the case. Let's say Terence Crawford is asking for a massive amount of money. Well, that just speaks to Terence Crawford understanding that how big of a fight this is, the magnitude of this fight, and that means Terence Crawford is very aware just how big this fight is, and that means that Terence Crawford is going to be prepared fully for this fight. Terence Crawford is somebody that's already prepared. Terence Crawford is never not in the gym. Terence Crawford, is always in the gym, right? Terence Crawford is always working out. He's always training. He's always getting prepared, right? So, he stays ready. What's the motto Floyd Mayweather always say? Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Well, that's Terence Crawford. He always stay ready, right? So Terence Crawford is staying ready, right? No doubt about it. And so with that said, I believe you're gonna get the absolute best version of Terence Crawford, not just the best version of, Errol Spence. So this is great news. The fact that we already saw footage, we already knew that Errol Spence was back in the gym, but now Derrick James has confirmed it from a trainer standpoint, because we see Errol Spence hitting the pads, working out with Marvelous Jarvis. We see Errol Spence, pounding the pavement. When I say pounding the pavement, he's out running, doing his road work, right? And he looks in shape, right? He's scruffy, right? No haircut, beard growing, meaning he focused, right? He's in hibernation, focused on his fight. And we saw Terence Crawford climbing the mountains, right? So we know that, like Derrick James said, now that he's strategically already preparing. It's just confirmation. And the fact that Terence Crawford, we know he stayed ready so he don't have to get ready, right? We know Terence Crawford is in the lab. We saw him at Snap. We saw him, when Devin Haney was preparing for his Undisputed Showdown, Terence Crawford was there. We saw Terence Crawford in the mountains working out and preparing and training. We already know this. As a matter of fact, when Errol Spence was fighting Yadena Sugas, we knew Terence Crawford was in the cabin preparing and training, right? So up in Big Bear or Colorado, wherever he trains at, right? So this is great news for us. I already feel like this is a can't-miss fight as far as delivering. You understand what I'm saying? There's many fights. The Floyd Mayweather-Manny Pacquiao fight in the ring didn't deliver. Not because of their age, not because it was too late, not because they waited too long. No, because styles make fights, and Floyd Mayweather was always going to nullify what Manny Pacquiao does great. Nullify Manny Pacquiao's one-dimensional. He's left-hand dominant, okay? He attempts to use his right hand, but when he's dealing with a master-class boxer, especially a master-class defensive fighter, he resorts back to what he knows. He gets left-hand dominant, right? He gets eager. He gets anxious. He wants to land the left hand. And Floyd Mayweather nullified it. So we got to date back 40 years. In the welterweight division, that is. 40 years. Over 40 years. September 16, 1981. The two legends, icons, Hall of Famers, superstars. Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hitman Hearns. 1981. Undisputed. Again, I can't reiterate this enough for people that may not know and may not understand. That era was only a 2-belt undisputed era. It was just the WBC and WBA that was major sanction belts. This is a 4-belt era. So this is historic. History is on the line. This will be the first time we have a 4-belt undisputed welterweight world champion in the history of the sport of boxing. So this speaks volumes. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But Derrick James confirms that they already training for Terence Crawford and preparing Terence Crawford. So let's see how it unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Road. Make sure you like and share the videos. That's all I got for you. Peace.